Hi, welcome. It's time for a children's book reading or a reading for children by a candidate, and I am that candidate, and I'm reading you the Constitution, so it's a reading for children from just a regular book. But my name is Susan Maud Buchser-Lochocki. I am still a presidential candidate from the 2024 presidential election. I have not conceded the election. And so I am your candidate reading you this book, which is a book of laws that we live by in our United States of America. And I was going to try to get through them all, but I think I might do the ones that have to do with voting, and then I still want to go back to one or two. So this will be the second to the last part of the Constitution that I read, and then I got to figure out what book to read next. I don't know what I want to read next, so I have to figure that out. I don't know what you want me to read next, but anyways, we'll figure it out together. So I am on Amendment 23. And it somewhat has to do with elections. So I'm going to do this last one to deal with elections. There's just so many that still have to do. So most of our later amendments had to do with elections because the Democrats and Republicans found ways to manipulate the system in small elections and big elections. And so new amendments had to be made to keep these people under control because they were not having fair elections. So you know what? I think I'm just going to do a long one. But I do want to get back once. So the last chapter will be on, again, the election or the amendment where we repealed something, and then the very last amendment in the Constitution. So we'll talk about those two things. And yeah. But anyways, so Amendment 23 was ratified in 1961, so I wasn't born yet, but almost. I was behind the moon, is what they say. So Section 1. The district constituting the seat of government of the United States shall appoint in such manner as Congress may direct. So, a number of electors of president and vice president equal to the whole number of senators and representatives in Congress to which the district would be entitled if it were a state, but in no event more than the least populous state. They shall be in addition to those appointed by the states, but they shall not be considered for the purpose of the election of president and vice president, to be electors appointed by a state. And they shall meet in the district and perform such duties as provided by the 12th article of amendment. And then Section 2 of this amendment states the Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. So, for the purpose of the election of president and vice president. So the smallest state has, I think, 2 senators and 1 House of Representatives, so that's 3. So that is, in this amendment, we're talking about the District of Columbia, which is where the land that holds our government, our federal government, where the White House is and Congress, that is not a state. It is a separate entity, special, set aside to be what it is, holding the government. And at sometimes the president is control of certain aspects of it, and otherwise it has a mayor, I believe, and has its own sort of business that it does, but it is not any one state, and so nobody's being favored or anything like that. There have been times where it was considered or wanted to be a state, and even I was thinking it might be a good idea for it to be a state, but there is a reason why it's not, and it needs to be a neutral place, because it's the center, it's the point of our country, it's the headquarters of our country. So we don't want it to be like the other lands. It's a special land. So it's a district. And here they get to vote like whatever the smallest the state that has the least amount of electoral votes, it gets that many votes also for president and vice president. So then the next one is Amendment 24. And it was ratified in 1964. And I was really just behind the moon at this point. And that is Section 1, the right of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary or other election for president or vice president, for electors, for president or vice president, or for senator or representative in Congress, shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state by any reason of failure to pay a poll tax or other tax. And then Section 2 is, the Congress shall have the power to enforce articles by appropriate legislation. So that is what the Democrats and Republicans were trying to do back before 1964. They were asking people to pay money to vote. And if you didn't pay the tax, you couldn't vote. And a lot of poor people couldn't pay the tax, so then they couldn't vote. So that was just another way of manipulating votes. And sadly, this is, we have so many amendments about stopping the Democrats and Republicans from manipulating the election process. And they don't seem to work because they just find a new way. But I want to also mention here that this whole primary vote is also a very strange one. It doesn't make sense because it can also be blocked by, if you're not in a party, you don't get to vote. But parties don't run our country, so they shouldn't be using our government funds for their elections, for their primaries anyways. They should hold their primaries on their own. So I have a real problem with what the Democrats and Republicans have done with our election process. That's the best way I can say it. So maybe I need to make an amendment. I don't know. So amendment number 25. And I think this is a long one. And this is 1967. And I was born already. And there was a lot of election fraud going on. And so then there's a lot of amendments about elections. In the case of removal of a president from office, or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. Whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president. who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote of both the House of Congress of both houses of Congress. Okay. Sorry, both houses of Congress. So the Senate and the House of Representatives will make a vote then. Section 3. Whenever a president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that he is unable to discharge his powers and duties of office, and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the vice president as acting president. So the vice president will then make the announcement as an acting president. Okay. Whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge his powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall immediately assume the power and duties of office as acting president. Thereafter, when the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office unless the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive department or of such other body as Congress may, by law, transmit within 4 days to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. Thereupon Congress shall decide the issue, assembling within 48 hours for that purpose, if not in session. If the Congress within 21 days after receipt of the latter written declaration, or if Congress is not in session within 21 days after Congress is required to assemble, determines by 2/3 vote of both House and the President is unable, of both houses, that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall continue to discharge the same as acting president. Otherwise, the president shall resume the powers and duties of his office. Then, amendment number 26 is again about voting, and it was ratified in 1971. Section 1. The right of citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of age. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article with appropriate legislation. Okay, folks, we are going to stop there. This is part 39 of my reading of the Constitution, and it's got a big bit in there about what happens if a president is not healthy enough to continue, or is, something happened and cannot complete his work. There are details about what happens. So, next time I'll probably read the first chapter, or at least the introduction of a new book, but I got to figure out which one that is. And then, I guess I'll already, I don't know what, so it'll be a surprise. And then I'll read the last part in 2 weeks. 2 Saturdays. Okay, so that's it for now. Thank you for stopping by. And if you want to find out more about me and my campaign and my lawsuit, it is Susan4USA.com. That's Susan, the number 4, USA.com. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good day.